Welcome to Red, White, and Blue. From the right, I'm Gary Polland.
And from the left, I'm David Jones.
Tonight, we welcome the candidates for Harris County Judge. First, the incumbent, Harris County Judge Ed Emmett, Republican, and his challenger, Democratic candidate Gordon Quan, Democrat. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Ed Emmett, you've had this job a little while. Why don't you tell us why you'd like to keep it here in a couple of minutes, please?
A little while, 3.5 years. And the reason I'd like to keep it, I'd like to have a 4-year term on my own to continue dealing with the issues that we're dealing with, namely transportation improvements, continue improving the emergency management system. It's good, but you can always tweak it and make it better. And really focus on, given the budget that we have, separating the mental ill patients from the criminal justice system. We've got to make that change in order to save taxpayers' dollars. We've got to focus on how we provide indigent health care so that we provide medical homes at neighborhood clinics rather than have people use the emergency rooms. There are a whole host of issues, but overarching everything else is we've got to make sure our economy continues to grow. And the way to do that is to build the infrastructure, and in these tight budget times, that's going to take some creative thinking, and I believe that I have that vision to give to the county.
I want to know, Gordon Quan, why we're here talking about such huge, ambitious projects. When I read about what the county judge does, it says something about just voting along with 4 other people to approve a budget, sitting on the juvenile board, approving beer and wine permits, and emergency management. What else is at stake here that Ed Emmett's not telling us about?
Well, you have a soapbox. As the county judge or the spokesman for the county, you also have a vote, and that's important. There's only 5 votes on the commissioner's court, and the county judge is one of those votes. So 3 votes gets things done. And I haven't seen a lot of things happening as fast as I want them to do. I think the judge points out a number of very good topics, but where's the action? Where's the meat?
All right, Judge, well, let me give you the chance. Where's the meat? 2 most important things you've accomplished in your first 3.5 years in office.
Well, you asked for 2, but I'm going to give you 3.
You can do that.
First and foremost, we have made sure that the emergency management system is the best in the country. Constant improvements on that. Secondly, as I came in as juvenile board chairman, we had to revamp the juvenile justice system, and that's been done under a grant from the Annie Casey Foundation, and it's now a model for the nation. And thirdly, transportation infrastructure. These are tight budget times, but Beltway 8 will be completely completed, if I can use that term, first quarter of next year. And we've started focusing on what can we do innovatively going forward with transportation. So those are 3, I think, pretty major accomplishments.
Very good.
We have revenues declining. We have property values declining. Some say 30% of the homes in Harris County for the first time in 20 years are taking a nosedive. The judge knows that his reserve fund is about to be gone in March of next year. They will be down to 1%, Gordon. So what about fiscal probity, and what about balancing a budget with taxes as recommended by a Republican commissioner named Eversole?
Well, I think Jerry Eversole was talking about all options that might be on the table. But I think that we need to be very creative looking at the budget, scrub the budget, see how we can improve things. For instance, our purchasing contracts, those have to go out for bid to make sure that we get the best prices. But also things like the Port Commission, for instance. There's an $11 million transfer that's anticipated at a tough time, but yet there's a freeze on hiring of county employees, there's no freeze on hiring of people at the port. We need to be looking very, very logically at every aspect of county government. I agree, growing the budget is big rather than having decline. I'm out promoting Harris County, trying to bring more investment and create more jobs. Jobs are the number one concern of people in Harris County. We have a transportation budget that has about $180 million that hasn't been spent. Let's get that money out there. Let's get jobs going. Let's move.
Well, let me defend Jerry Eversole if I can, Gary. He said at the table the other day that the vote to reduce the tax rate 4 years ago was the dumbest thing that he's ever done. He's admitting that he put us in this position to where, Judge, we're in serious financial trouble.
Well, that tax rate reduction was really one of the best votes we ever did because it moved our bond rating. We were AA plus, now we're AAA bond rated at the county. We are in far better shape than other local governments, and that always needs to be noted. I know we're not here to talk about Commissioner Eversole, but he was very clear after that court meeting. He was not calling for a tax increase. He was expressing frustration at the budget. I have that same frustration, and that's why I keep talking about some approach of a zero-based budgeting, so that we go in and we look at all the programs that have been in place. There are a lot of times when revenues go flat, the reaction is always, well, let's just cut everything equally. But we have some new programs we need to start. One of those new programs, one of those new facilities is a joint processing center. We have to do that. And it's more important, I think, than some of the other things. So we need to go back and look at the budget, start over with a zero-based budgeting, and go from there.
Judge, we've talked about the economy, and the Obama economy that we're suffering under has been around for longer than this fiscal year or next fiscal year that looks like it's going to be here. What did the county do when you started seeing that things were going to get tougher, property tax revenue dropping?
Well, of course, we implemented a hiring freeze, which personally I think has gone on too long. I think elected officials and people in positions of authority need to make decisions. This position's worth keeping, this position's not, instead of arbitrarily saying, well, that person retired, so we're not going to fill that position. That's not always the best approach to take. But all of us at the county were told to tighten our belts. We did, and we're going to get through this year, and next year's budget is when we really need to, again, go back to some form of zero-based budgeting.
And if I could talk about the juvenile justice system and the reforms you did, and we'll get back to Gordon, has the reforms that you all instituted there saved the county money?
Oh, huge amounts of money, because instead of having 250 juveniles in the juvenile detention center on any given night, now we have about 150. You take out 100, the cost of those, we're talking about millions of dollars saved. Plus, it's a better justice system. At the end of the day, criminal justice, whether you're talking about adults or juveniles, the result needs to be more fair justice. And the fact that it saves money, that's just dessert.
Well, Gordon, do you think we can take some of the lessons that we've learned from reform in the juvenile justice system and apply it to the criminal justice system and reduce jail population and save the county money there?
Exactly, Gary. We need to look at who's in jail. 80% of the people have been in jail before. It's kind of a revolving door. What are their problems? Many of the problems are mental health, drug addiction, homelessness. Other cities have looked at a more holistic approach. How do we provide housing? How do we provide support services at a less costly manner than having to warehouse people in our county jail? The judge often says that the greatest provider of medication in the state is the county jail, which is pretty expensive, you know. Talking to the DA's office and some of the other folks, they're talking about how do we look at providing those meds outside of jail? How do we look at reaching the people so we don't have to incarcerate them? How do we look at rebuilding some of these lives on a long-term basis so they're not a burden on our society?
Couldn't someone make the argument that this budget freeze and our handicap, financial handicap, is actually creating threats to public safety? I mean, we now know that the sheriff has 363 unfilled positions. We now know that violent crime, according to the FBI, is up in Pasadena, is up in Pearland, is up in Houston, is up in Baytown. And other surrounding cities have shown dramatic increases in violent crime. And yet we're here at the table hearing y'all talk about we can't do anything about filling 363 deputy positions, apparently.
Who are you addressing that to?
Whoever.
Okay.
There is a threat to public safety if you refuse to fund deputies who could be out in the streets.
Well, I agree with that premise. However, all of those municipalities you mentioned have their own police forces, and that's not where the sheriff's deputies would have the impact. What's going on in the unincorporated area? I think that's the question you need to ask. Having said that, I do believe we need another class of cadets. I do believe that the sheriff needs to fill some of those positions. That's one of the reasons I've been as vocal as I have about the hiring freeze, because some places you need to fill. A better example really is the medical examiner's office. Right now there's a huge wait for somebody just on a homicide scene, things like that. So we do need to go in and look at position by position, and I believe Commissioner's Court will start doing that very soon.
So is the sheriff not in charge of criminal justice in Harris County? Shouldn't he be making this argument that I'm making?
I agree with you totally, David. And the sheriff is making that argument that he's dangerously thin on officers now. Actually, because we're spending less money for the sheriff's department, we can't meet certain grant requirements to get more federal funding. The sheriff has also proposed, like, let's do a consolidated call center as opposed to having all of the constables having call centers as well. Get more people on the streets. This overtime situation, we're paying more for those deputies. We could be doing those cadet classes. I agree with the county judge that we need to be doing that. But it's not just talk. It's like, where's the action? That's what I want to see.
Well, I mean, I heard Judge Emmett say that someone told y'all, the Commissioner's Court, that you couldn't do something. You were told that you couldn't do something. Who is it that's telling you what you can't do?
Well, of course, we have an Office of Management Services, and that's who manages the finances of the county on a day-to-day basis.
Mr. Raycraft.
But they work
right?
Correct. But they work for Commissioner's Court. And if you've been in Commissioner's Court lately, we've had some fairly lively discussions about the hiring freeze. And I know and one of the commissioners has said, look, we need to start looking at it position by position rather than just arbitrarily accepting the freeze. We went past mid-year review, which was just about a month ago. Once you get past mid-year review, then you start developing the next year's budget. And I think all of these are going to be some very interesting, controversial decisions to be made by Commissioner's Court. And I think both of us would agree it's easy to budget when your revenues are doing this. We're going to have some tough decisions, which is one of the main reasons I want to retain this position.
I guess Gary, this means that we'll have a tax increase next year after this election. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you think is going to happen, Gordon?
I would think that that'd be pretty deceptive on the public, because I don't think anybody's talking about a tax increase, and I'm certainly not talking about a tax increase.
Okay, well, then let's talk about this. I think what you're all talking about is priorities. I mean,
Yes.
you're going to have to prioritize in the county
Absolutely.
budget
It's
now
government
because we don't
always.
have an infinite amount of money. So starting with you, Judge, what are your top 3 priorities for the county budget by area?
You always give me these numbers to answer.
Well, you could do more than
top
3
2.
if
No.
you want.
Well, first and foremost, we need to see what the legislature does in terms of transportation funding, because we have to maintain mobility, not only for people but for freight in our community. And we will take whatever steps. So my priority is to be as creative as we can on transportation funding. Secondly, though, on health care, even though the Harris County Hospital District has its own board of managers, we are all working together to establish a more regional approach, one where the hospital district uses some of its funds to help the neighborhood clinics. They have a contract right now with Denver Harbor and Spring Branch, so that we start providing better care, preventive care, that's also less expensive. That'll be a big saving for the taxpayers. And then beyond that, again, I sound like a broken record, but my priority is to start over with the budget. It's nothing critical about what's gone before, but now's the time to go back and look at everything that's in the budget. Most of the budget's in the precincts, and so the commissioners have control over that. And so I'm not going in telling the commissioners you have to do this or you have to do that. But I think all 4 commissioners and the county judge need to sit down going into the next budget year and say, this program's worth keeping, this is a new program we need to do, that program's not worth keeping.
Gordon, what's
Well,
your take?
I'd say, Gary, that we have a wonderful community of social service organizations, and working together with people like Catholic charities, like neighborhood centers. Let's see about building more affordable housing that could provide support services to relieve the pressure on our jail, so we don't have to be putting people in jail. The county can take a lead in this. You know, right now we're looking at the new Dynamo Stadium, and part of that discussion deals with TERS monies for affordable housing, and to create a fund that will help build this type of long-term affordable housing. The state has given the city $3 million extra for support services. We can leverage money. This has been a big push of the Obama administration, HEARTH funds. We should be getting an additional $15 million in the coming fiscal year. The reason I talk about that is once we can get housing and people stabilize, they don't need to be taking up space in our county jail. That's, I guess, my first priority. With that, families being stabilized, it will provide better places for kids to be raised. The face of homelessness is oftentimes children who don't know where they're going to be next and turn to juvenile crime because they don't have a stable home environment.
Here's the big gorilla in the room that Gordon raises, if I can, Gordon, which is
Yes.
the pressure on the county jail, which, as everyone knows, the sheriff's budget, which includes the management of the jail, is about 40% of the entire budget of Harris County. And yet, we continue to hear nothing but that, oh, well, we're too crowded, we have to send inmates to Louisiana, when presently in Fort Bend County, Republican-led county, they give tickets for Class B misdemeanors. We don't do it here. We have a pretrial release agency that could get people in poverty out of jail, underutilized. And here, my friend, is a statistical nightmare which says that the average county criminal court in Harris County, average criminal court trying misdemeanor cases, tries 2 cases per month. So we got part-time judges here making $120,000. So what I'm saying is, who's in charge here?
David, you are absolutely right. Our pretrial services used to be a model for the country. Now it's a shadow of what it was previously. 60% of the people in jail have not been found guilty of anything yet. They've been charged but not found guilty. Also in the latest budget by Ray Kraft, he talks about using GPS systems and monitors instead of just putting people in jail. I agree with you. This is something that's underutilized and could be used to save money.
There's this coordinated counsel, shared by a former judge. I guess they're all in bed together and they don't want to do anything.
Well, no, you also have to understand that if we were running for district attorney, these would be better questions to ask us as opposed to being county judge. If you start talking about who gets charged, who gets released, and those types of things. I spend a lot of time, spend a lot of money on TV commercials saying, I'm not that kind of judge. So these are all interesting questions, and they're nice questions for the budget. But I do believe the district attorney and the sheriff and others if have been working hard. And if you look, you'll see that the overcrowding in the jail is less than it was a year ago and less than it was 2 years ago. So there's progress being made. But ultimately, and I believe we agree on this, ultimately, we've got to find a way to get the revolving door closed so that those people who have mental conditions, who keep getting arrested and rearrested, have another place to go. We disagree on where that is. I think we should work more with MHMRA and groups like that. I don't think the county needs to get into the housing business, the institution business for mental health issues. I think there are other groups that should be doing that. But that ultimately is going to be the best solution to ending overcrowding in a jail.
Let me ask you this question, Gordon. Do you think that the Harris County system of government as it's set up now, which was set up, what is it, 19th century, early 20th century, do you think it's relevant to today's modern times in a county of, 5 million people plus?
Well, Gary, I think it does serve a very important purpose. I think that we can look at, say, the treasurer. Do we still need the county treasurer? Some have opted out of the county treasurer. Looking at it from the outside, it doesn't seem to be as efficient. But, to tell you the truth, being in there and working at it, that's what I feel I'll look for efficiencies within that system.
Judge, do we need to start looking at changes for how we govern the county? I mean, from the upper leadership point, because we have 5 people running a county of 5 or 6 million people. It is a huge job, despite David's de minimis description of the job.
It is a huge job, and the commissioners, do a huge part of that huge job.
Aren't they a combination of being like a mayor and being a legislator?
Yeah, well, in a way, but they used to be called road and bridge commissioners, and in rural counties that's largely what they do. But we are an urban county, and I think I and the commissioners all the time are given the same speech about, as an urban county, we need to approach things differently. And that's why we go to the legislature year after year and try and say, can we do this, can we do that? Because anything the county does, it's covered by the Constitution and legislative.
You said that you are not running for district attorney, and I was talking about, as Gordon was talking about, some of the failings of the judiciary, but you are on TV saying, keep these people, keep these judges. And so I guess, is it fair to say, if you're saying keep all of these judges, we have to ask, what about the results that are coming out of this courthouse?
Well,
we have
David,
every few months we have somebody who's coming out of TDC after having served 25, 30, 15 years who were imprisoned illegally by our judicial system.
Well, actually, David, you're going to have to go back and re-listen to that TV ad. What that TV ad says is vote all the way down the ballot. I encourage everybody to make sure they don't skip all those judicial races. If you have a particular peeve against one judge, fine. Unfortunately, the term county judge is something I would change if I could. That's not going to happen. I spend a part of my time saying I'm not that kind of judge, as you saw in the other TV commercial. And so all of a sudden we look up at this election year, and I'm below 30-something state district judges and just above 30-something county court at law judges. And I go, oh my gosh, all this time I've been saying I'm not a real judge, I'm the county judge, but if they're going to vote for me, they're going to have to find me in the middle of all those real judges. So that's why that ad was made, and it said very specifically, be sure and vote all the way down the ballot. And I'd say that again to all the listeners. Be sure and vote all the way down that ballot.
I think I understand the judge's answer pretty well, Gordon. Is there a quality of justice problem in Harris County? And if so, what is a democratic judicial justice going to look like?
Well, I think it's going to be one that's more reflective of the population. And I know that people will say, well, does it need to be that way? You know, we are a very multicultural county now. And I think that the experiences each person brings in their life experiences to the bench has an impact. They're all going to have to follow the law, no doubt about it. But I think judging a person as far as how much I believe them, understanding their culture, understanding their positions, I think that we'll have more sensitive judges that are Democrats if you look at who's going to be on the ballot.
Well, have you looked at the Democratic ticket, Gordon? Those
Yeah.
people that are on there, did you see the shocking number of Democratic judicial candidates who had no experience in the area of the law they want to be a judge, like probate or like criminal, like a personal injury lawyer running for a criminal bench, you got a personal injury lawyer running for a probate bench. Zero experience. I mean, and to be fair, there's some fine Democrats that are well qualified that are running, but I saw these people, I'm kind of wondering, like, what happened? How did these people get nominated? Where did they find them?
Well, Gary, I'm sure it happens on the Republican side as well. Somebody throws their name in the ring, and they get selected in the primary, or the party asks them to run. Certainly, no ticket is perfect by any stretch, and I agree. Look, check out the tickets, check out the qualifications, but I don't think you can just put that on the feet of the Democrats.
Tell Gary, if you care to, because County Judge Emmett will, about how it is that a public defender's office is going to improve the quality of justice in Harris County and fairness in the results. Are you going to make that case?
Well, I certainly support the public defender's office, Gary. I hope it doesn't offend you.
Well, I don't care where you stand, Gordon, but I would suggest you research what's happened around the country. And in every major community where a public defender's there, it's a history of failure, a history of too many cases, a history of dropping the ball, and a history of bureaucratic empire building, which has happened everywhere. Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. Well, maybe we'll be different here, but who knows?
Well, I think we're modeling it after what we see in the Southern District of Texas courts and federal courts, and that has been a successful public defender's office. It has, because there's a limited
number of cases they handle. That's part of it.
Right.
In fact, that's all of it. And if that's all we're going to do with a public defender, then here it would probably work. But if it's going to be broad-based, like a lot of your liberal friends want to see happen, it'll fail just like it has everywhere else.
You need to argue with Judge Emmett. He's the one that voted for it.
Oh, Judge Emmett, I'm sure, understands the issue, don't you, Judge?
I do indeed. And I think we took a very measured approach. And that's why we have the hybrid system starting, and it was adopted, by Commissioner's Court. Commissioner Lee and Commissioner Garcia represent the court. They're the two Democrats on the committee that basically made the thing evolve.
So, in other words, David, what the judge is saying, he's in for a dime, but not in for $1 billion. He wants to.
Each of you have a ticket that's being led by someone running for governor. White, Perry. I saw that Mr. Perry is getting no endorsements anywhere from the state's newspapers. Are you confident that Bill White will win?
Well, I think Bill White's certainly a great campaigner. He did a wonderful job as mayor here in Houston. I think most all Houstonians will agree on that. I think that. I'm not underestimating Bill White. I think he has a homely approach to people. He can relate to people on a one-on-one basis. 10 years is a long time to have a guy as governor. So I think Bill White can win.
He says Bill White is homely or something? Is that what you heard?
I don't think that's what. I think he meant homey rather than homely. We won't pick on Bill for his homes.
Okay, well, you've got the handsome guy, so you can be for him now.
Well, my situation is I'm running for county judge. And I know both those people. Known them for a long time. Obviously, have worked with both of them. But if you want to talk about endorsements, let's talk about endorsements for county judge. I've basically gotten every major endorsement there is. Everything from the conservative C club to the AFL-CIO, which for a Republican is a little bit unusual. And so I'm just focused on the county judge race. I leave the governor's race to other people.
And that'll be the end of the examination that we've had. We appreciate you being here.
Thank
Gordon
you both.
Kwan,
Well, thanks for having us.
Judge Ed Emmett, good luck to
pleasure.
you both.
Thank you.
You too can not sit down with us, either because Bill White and Rick Perry didn't, but you can see them if you visit Evan Smith at the Texas Tribune for extended interviews with those two candidates. You can watch them on our page at HoustonPBS.org. Just click on the local program bar, pick red, white, and blue, and you'll get to see it there. You can also read about our guests, watch the shows, along with follow-up discussion from this election season. Until next time, get informed and get active.